Hey brother, welcome to Joke Math, where I dissect some of the funniest things of all time until they aren't anymore. It's kind of like revealing a magician's trick.
Illusion, Michael.
Oh, sorry, revealing a magician's illusion. The point is, the Alliance is not going to be happy about this video.
Well, you're out.
I'll be your host, Michael. And in case you didn't guess, today we're talking about Arrested Development. At the risk of offending my first love, The Simpsons, AD might be the most innovative sitcom written since we switched from BC to... Oh hey, I see what I did there, and you will too, as I break down 457 jokes and references you probably missed and explain why they're mathematically perfect, and in some cases, new types of joke I'm pretty sure didn't even exist before. We'll talk comedy writing and medieval professions and quantum computing. You know, all the basics. And yes, beads.
Bees?
Beads.
Beads?
Job's not on board.
It's the final countdown you'll ever need of Arrested D analysis. All right, Michael, you're up. Hi, it's me again, the Honest Ads guy, by which I mean not Roger, but rather the creator of the Honest Ads series, who is himself doing some ads that are honest. And honestly, if you're not using a VPN, your data's basically everywhere. A VPN is a service that encrypts and protects your data so that you can browse safely and privately. I used to not use one, and now I do for society reasons, and I like and recommend it, or I wouldn't be doing the ad. That's honesty. Whatever your reasons, private internet access is the most transparent VPN service around and allows you to access region-restricted streaming content, plus protect an unlimited number of devices at once. You want to watch Memento on Netflix right now? If you live in my country, you can't. It's not on there. Why? They forgot. But if you have the PIA VPN, you could switch to a South Korean connection and watch it right now through their Netflix. Tattoo that on your torso, baby. If you click the link in the description below, you can save 83%, oddly specific, off your VPN service and get 4 bonus months completely free at piavpn.com/cracked. It's also a great way to show your support for the new Cracked, which I'm sure is going to go over just as well as new Coke. Back to the thing. In 2003, when Arrested Development premiered, I was instantly hooked and sat up alone in the dorm common area all freshman year to watch every episode live while everybody else was off humping. I didn't have sex or drugs or pals.
What about business associates?
I have none.
I had Arrested Development. I win. The show is honestly a big reason I chose to do this professionally.
I'm serious and I'm a professional.
That's fantastic.
And now to make this video, I've stared at it so long, I'll probably never laugh at it again. Why must we destroy what we love? Just to make my point, let's start with a really wild one, then we'll do some more regular ones, and then ramp up to the most wild one at the end, because the algorithm has determined that's the structure of videos like this. Hey, you know the 7 deadly sins? Well, the Bluths aren't based around those because that would be hacky, but they may just be based on the 7 cardinal virtues, the gallon to the sins goofus, or goofeth. Each main character, except for one, and we'll get to that, specifically and consistently lacks one cardinal virtue in particular. Michael lacks humility.
Too proud? What does this have to do with too proud?
Actually, that part was kind of just for you.
And Michael kicked himself for a pose he thought would express humility to Sanjeev.
George Sr. lacks charity, as we see him constantly screwing people over with crooked business deals. That's what a comedy writer might call his bag of tricks, or an asshole might call his wheelhouse.
Don't call it that.
I think ultimately it's because he's afraid to express himself.
Obviously, the whole cast are allowed to make other jokes, but the central motor that drives that character remains. Lindsay lacks chastity, not just in the sense that she wears this shirt to prison, but in her consistently falling short of her own set moral goals with the protests and whatnot.
And Lindsay discovered that the activism that came out of her desire for prettier hair really did boost her self-esteem.
Job lacks temperance, that was a freebie. Tobias lacks the patience required to be either a doctor or an actor, or even, as we'll get into later, a black American. What? No time. Lucille lacks kindness.
I don't care for Joe.
while maybe lacks diligence, always coasting through life.
Hey, baby!
Okay, so you can run faster than me, but you can't make me work.
And frankly, all of them lack the ability to track any of what I just said.
Yes, we did it. We're getting rid of the 10 Commandments. Well, it's like the 10 Commandments saying, be true to thine own self and to thine own self.
Be true.
Savvy viewers may have noticed I skipped someone very key to the show.
Gene? It's just some idiot with balloons.
Oh, is it?
No, I mean George Michael Que Sera Sera. Although he does develop into an overtly sexual liar by the end of season 4, for most of AD's run, George Michael is the Samwise. What I mean by that is that the show presents Michael as the main character and the one keeping them all together, yet his immediate impulse every time the shit hits the fan is to bail and move to Arizona, which in this and every case represents hell.
You guys have had your hands in the company coffer for years, but starting tomorrow, there is going to be a new boss in town, and you're all gonna have to start fending for yourselves. You're all gonna finally feel that sweet sting of sweat in your eyes as Buster. You can't do that on the balcony, buddy.
The true moral compass of the show and the secret main character is George Michael. You can tell because we genuinely care what happens to him. And without him as the glue, the family truly would fly apart.
What the hell's going on with you lately? I wanted to watch Hindsight, and you weren't there. I want to pack up and desert the family, and you don't want to. Is it this new girlfriend?
No, it's because of the family. I like the family.
I actually think the true theme of the show is escaping a toxic upbringing. But the thing that it recognizes is it's too late for Michael. It's the next generation, the kids, that still have a chance. This drives father and son further and further apart until it climaxes in an actual pop to the nose.
It's like we're identical twins.
Man, I swear I got chills the first time I saw that scene.
Douche chill.
I can't believe they used that part.
So, like Sam to Michael's Frodo, George Michael quietly carries the whole fellowship on his back, which honestly would make anyone slump when they walked. You're smart and beautiful and clicked on my content, so you probably noticed the Snoopy doghouse in the background there, especially considering the title of the episode is Good Grief. But maybe you didn't notice all the other Peanuts connections throughout the series. Lucille, which of course is Lucy Van Pelt's full name, says good grief constantly, just like in the middle of her lines. Look for it. Buster calls his wiener his Linus.
They even touched my Charlie Browns.
Plus, Buster Brown is a famous name, and Charlie Brown's last name is Brown. I think. It's like the gang's all here.
Not Woodstock.
True, not Woodstock. I'm just saying someone on the AD team clearly loves Peanuts. In the same way I love Arrested Development so much, I had these custom prints made. Although I do keep them in the room where I piss, so I don't know what that means.
I can't imagine what that means.
But we can imagine a lot of stuff the names in the show mean because the writers love aptronyms. That's when an author gives a character a name that's a coded clue as to their function in the story. Dickens used to do it all the time. In his book Hard Times, there's a teacher who helps students grind so they can graduate named Mr. Gradgrind. Similarly, in Arrested Development, there's a character named Kitty who literally represents pussy. And no, I don't mean it in the friendly British way.
Fighting for your country? You're such a pussy.
Seriously, Kitty's motivation in the show is to get sperm inside of her so she can become pregnant, and her favorite place to meet is Senor Tadpoles. Come on!
George Sr. was in Mexico with his escape accomplice and ex-secretary, Kitty.
It must be my unconscious desire to have a baby.
If you need me, I will be at Senior Tadpoles having a margarita made in my mouth.
You might have thought Kitty was meant to rhyme with titty, and that would have been reasonable.
Spring break! Woo! Can we please have one conversation that's not about my rack, Michael?
But it's definitely a pussy reference. And that's not even mentioning that the sperm cooler has Saddam H on it backwards, and that my rack line is a stealth Iraq sound-alike.
My rack, Michael.
Honestly, there's just too much to touch on, so let's stick to names for now. Maybe may be a Bluth, but she may not, and her alter ego is named Shirley. Ann Veal was raised in a box. Miss Barely is barely an ethics teacher.
I don't know, I mean, they just threw this class at me after Mr. Daniels had a stroke.
Cindy Lightballoon is part of a sting that involves putting hidden microphones in lights and her balloons.
How we doing?
We have video?
Testing, 1, 2.
Tobias' last name is Funke, the German word for spark, so he's essentially Dr. Sparkle. Oh, no, sorry, he gave up his medical license, so I guess he's Mr. Sparkle.
Mr. Sparkle! Mr. Sparkle!
Konnichiwa.
Speaking of which, here's the voice of Homer Simpson, Dan Castellaneta, nailing his guest spot on Arrested Development as Dr. Stein, who ends up pulling several Frankenstein-like surgeries.
Wasn't so inflamed, dough.
I knew it.
Rita turned out to be is that really what they were going for? Okay, I guess I don't stand behind every Arrested Development joke.
Go home, you terrorist!
How stupid do you have to be to say something like that?
You're not wanted here!
No good. But what is real good is the title Arrested Development itself. Not only does it obviously refer to George Sr. being a developer who's arrested, and the thing I said before about how each character who's not George Michael is fundamentally stunted in one dimension of their humanity, but I'm pretty sure it's also a meta reference to the sitcom structure itself.
I had to help out your grandfather, and then I had to vow that I would never help your grandfather again. Pretty much a normal day for me.
The defining trait of sitcom structure is that a bunch of wild stuff happens and then everything snaps back to normal at the end so we can do it again next week.
It's Arrested Development.
That's how thoughtful this team is. I really believe that. That's how smart these people are. That doesn't make Arrested Development objectively funny because that's not a thing. But it does introduce a level of information-rich complexity that rewards close viewing in a way I didn't experience on film again until the movie Get Out. I love cracking codes and seeing how that unlocks layers of jokes that I never knew were there.
Sometimes I just like to think my thoughts.
That's my whole thing too.
Take the kitty thing again, which makes this Michael line a perfect encapsulation of how his destiny in the series is to always date but never find lasting love.
Thanks, Dad. Are you sure you're gonna be okay without Kitty?
Don't you worry. She'll turn up.
I don't have time for a relationship. This is important.
And because these writers do operate at that level, I'm gonna pitch one more set of aptronyms I think are in there, but I certainly can't prove it. These two cops are named Taylor and Carter. A tailor makes clothes and a carter drives horses. A clothes horse is something you use to air out dirty laundry, which is the cop's exact function in the show re Maggie Leiser's whole scheme.
I knew she was up to something. She said she doesn't know who the father is.
In a funny way, neither do we. We just gave her a mixed cocktail. 2 parts Taylor,
2 parts Carter.
I don't know. You be the judge.
My name is Judge.
Whose name is Judge?
My name is
Okay,
That's a silly name.
that's enough.
Judge. My name.
Stop. Amazing bit. One of the best. But we have more secret jokes to cover. Should the guy in the $85 outfit not cover secret jokes so you can do a joke? Should. It works with jobs, too. Buster is a cartographer because he's so sheltered. Much like Linus, the blue blanket of a map is his comfort, and he'd rather imagine the outside world than actually experience it.
Obviously, this blue part here is the land.
But names and jobs are just cool bells and whistles. Let's dive into why the show felt so unique at the time and some of the joke math innovations it made. If you don't already know, it's loosely based on the show Soap, a send-up of soap operas that featured a gay guy living with his mean mom and a brother who has a ventriloquist act with a dummy whose skin is so many shades darker than his own that one must ask, is this racist?
Let me give that oatmeal some brown sugar.
To which the answer is yes. But you gotta admit, the puzzle pieces are strikingly similar.
Well, I thought we decided that was like stealing.
Is that where we landed on that?
Soap stood out by genre bending at a time that was rarely done, and Arrested Development succeeds for similar reasons. In the early 2000s, the comedy landscape was dominated by single-cam, documentary-style improv like Judd Apatow movies, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and The Office. The vibe at the time was that we were all very excited to make sitcoms feel real, and like we were just a fly on the wall watching people be casually funny.
Gonna take a nap. See you in 10 hours.
That was a natural reaction to the sitcoms that came right before that, most of which felt very play-like or farcical and artificial in that sense. Arrested Development hybridized those two ideas to make something pretty unique at the time, a weekly mockumentary. It's shot like it's real, like all those other shows, yet it constantly breaks that reality to draw your attention to the very fact that this is a made-up show, which it knows you know it knows you know.
I must remind you that there are no cameras allowed in my courtroom.
Somehow, Arrested Development can often fashion a hilarious joke out of nothing more than a character describing exactly what's happening in the very moment they're saying that line.
It's not like there's some list of rules handed down to us from on high. No. Watch your head. 47, okay, there's still 3 whistles left out there. Who's got the whistles?
He kept one.
There's a good example of whistle blowing.
Herding cats. That's okay. It's more important to show how we make the show than to actually make it.
What I'm calling you is a television actor.
That joke works even if you don't know who James Lipton is. But of course it hits harder if you do, inviting you to connect the show to as many neurons as possible. An astounding number of celebs appear as themselves: Conan O'Brien, Andy Richter, Judge Reinhold, William Hung, Carl Weathers, Rebel Alley, Ron Howard, Dave Attell, and more. And look, Sam Richardson. I used to be in stuff with that guy. Not anymore though. Not anymore. Hey, you know what? Let's call him. See what old Sam's up to. Nope, nothing. Blocked. Straight to voicemail. To cheer me up and get the video back on track, here are some of the meta jokes in Arrested Development you might have missed. In couples counseling, Tobias and guest star Bob Odenkirk perform role play despite his wife being the one who should obviously be doing that. In other words, they put on a Mr. Show. Nellie Bluth was played by Jason Bateman's real-life sister Justine Bateman, which makes all of their scenes intentionally creepy and echoes the Maybe George Michael arc. That's the joke. On the joke, on the joke.
And Michael felt a connection like he'd never felt with anyone in his family.
But it might be your sister, remember?
Well,
She was.
marry me. It's weird on so many levels.
If you're my age, you probably noticed when Henry Winkler did his classic Fonzie move from the Ron Howard starring show Happy Days in the mirror. But did you notice when he literally jumped the shark? Or, the hardest to catch of all, the fact that the character Fonzie was replaced by the character Chachi on Happy Days in order to skew younger with the audience. And Scott Baio, who plays Blah Blah Blah, who replaces Barry as the family lawyer, played Chachi. I love it. I love Chachi, that's another joke.
This is not the first time I've been brought in to replace Barry Zuckerkorn. I think I can do for you everything he did, plus skew younger.
The reason Michael was in a Peter Pan musical isn't just for the Captain Hook Buster connection, but also because he has Peter Pan syndrome, defined by psychologists as never-grown adults who seem unable to mature. Ba-ba-ba-boom. And speaking of Buster, you might already know that in this shot, he's recreating a famous Buster Keaton stunt. But did you know that in this shot, he's recreating a famous stunt by one of Buster Keaton's contemporaries, Harold Lloyd? And just like Buster, Harold Lloyd was holding on with a prosthetic hand, because he was actually missing his right thumb and forefinger in real life. Boom goes the reference, mate. Nerds rejoice. Comedy nerds eat all your tasty treats.
Oh, isn't that nice he took the time?
That sort of joke where what's happening on screen literalizes a metaphor or a saying is something I had encountered rarely, if at all, before Arrested Development and found thrilling.
The Living Classics pageant, an Orange County tradition, consists of live representations of classic works of art. The Bluth family has participated not only as a patron, but as an integral part of its most popular exhibit.
They're like puns, but with concepts or images. Like, here's Tobias, who's been presented as a black cat in this episode so far, playing a game of cat and mouse with what he thinks is a blind person who's forced to navigate using her other senses. like a bat, which she then employs, reversing the game until Michael shows up with a dog. Later in court, he even throws the book at her.
Objection!
Why do you think the last vestige of the Bluth largesse is a stair car? It's because all these people have left are uphill battles that lead nowhere. Some of them are crazy subtle. Take this cut from George Michael's line to George Sr. in prison, literally trying to clean up a mess before it becomes a sentence.
What do you say?
Well, if I clean it up, it's not really a sentence.
And so George Sr. made another call.
Kitty's on the loose. I need you to make something disappear for me.
But that's not the joke format the show is most famous for. That would be the long con, like Anyang. There are a lot of these. Buster's claw hand was foreshadowed way before his hand was bitten off by Lucille, which is the one that most people notice first.
My hand chair. I had one in my room. I wonder where that went.
It went right there.
Well, I never thought I'd miss a hand so much.
Even minor crimes are punishable by brutally chopping off the offender's hand.
No ring?
And then a seal bites off his hand.
There were some other pretty obvious ones too.
They said my father was here.
Did they?
But even the obvious ones were paired with supporting bits that were a lot subtler, like the fact that both Oscar and Buster have a tendency to drug their respective Lucilles.
I thought maybe you could help me get some weed. It's not for me, it's for Lucille too, my girlfriend.
Mom is very stressed out, and she needs something that I can't give her. Maybe a little afternoon delight.
In order to make those big reveals come together so satisfyingly, the writers did what we sometimes call laying pipe, because comedy writers have no need for sex euphemisms as they don't have it. Laying pipe is setting up an arc for later. And there's a bunch of these throughout that you may have missed, particularly the ones that were never paid off. Sudden Valley eventually collapses into a sinkhole is an easy one.
You know, Sudden Valley conjures up the image of a sinkhole. No?
Or you might have noticed all the ostrich imagery swirling around Lucille Austero. But did you know the reason she has vertigo in the first place is because in real life, ostriches whirl around like idiots when they want to mate, and she's always horny for one of the Bluth boys. Then there's the popular theory that Tobias isn't actually gay, but black.
Let's just sit quietly and consider how ridiculous that statement was.
Not that those things are mutually exclusive, but that makes way for Job to be secretly gay and overcompensating for it. Let's take the Tobias piece first.
I don't suppose you'd be interested in catering an affair with me.
Well, when you get a full guest list, let me know.
I am surprised, though, that she's going after somebody so similar to my own type. He's a regular Freddie Wilson, that one.
I don't know that reference.
No, I don't either.
It's this guy.
People hear the name Tobias, they think big black guy.
Well, obviously, I'm not a big guy. I'm not a Carl Weathers, for example.
No, he's not, but his season 4 rival Herbert Love is, and he's also bald with glasses, almost like he's a reflection of the man inside Tobias, who is also depicted as black on the cover of his book with that title. Here's a note he just signed T, which now that he's not a doctor would of course make him Mr. T. Plus, how much funnier would it be if it turned out he wasn't gay and just was terrible at phrasing? Doesn't that feel like the kind of subversion this show might do? Maybe he just can't have sex anymore because he's on Xanatab and Temacil, which have strikingly similar side effects.
Xanatab may cause dry mouth, hair loss, an overly alert feeling, and in some cases may diminish your sex drive.
Xanatab?
Temacil may decrease your sex drive.
Temacil?
Honestly, the idea that he can't orgasm due to medication and that's what's undermining his marriage to a highly sexual woman and forcing him to hide his true self is sort of woven into all his "I sound so gay" lines too, like a secret code of meaning underneath the original double entendre.
Might as well keep this makeup on since it takes so long to get off.
It's a triple entendre, folks. Plus, if Tobias was black, that would totally explain why White Power Bill hates him so much. Of course, he's not just black. Sometimes Tobias is black and blue. And I don't mean his ego's bruised, but that too. I mean, this is a man with a penchant for changing his skin color. What? Oh, Oh! Tobias also conflates being gay with gender bending and cross-dressing over the course of the series, something his analogous character in Soap was accused of doing by the queer community.
I'm so glad you came. I was hoping for more women.
Although whether that was intentional satire or lazy 2000s lampshading, hard to say. I honestly believe there was a version of this show pitched where they eventually reveal that Tobias is a trans black woman. Mr. F, if you will.
Tobias Funke, you're Mr. F.
He, she, what's the difference?
Oh, here. In the dark, it all looks the same.
And Tobias was having his first book
And
reading.
for the ease of the reader, I have changed all the gender-related pronouns, he, she, to the masculine he.
Speaking of conflating gender identity and sexual orientation, I should apologize for calling Job gay earlier, when what I actually mean is I think he's probably pan, both in the sexual sense and in the sense that he's a naughty little goat boy. Job will have sex at anything, and the natural climax of this game is when he has sex with himself in Season 4. But he's not comfortable with his sexual feelings, which is why Job is constantly lying about having lots of sex and just generally wildly overcompensating all the time, to the point that he can't even have sex with the woman who plays his wife, Amy Poehler, Will Arnett's real-life wife.
Did you say seals?
Yes, I told you like 4 hours ago. I sell seals. God, you ever listen to what I say?
When he's not trying to grab a banana, get into a poof, or infiltrate the Gothic asshole,
No, the Gothic asshole.
Job is usually saying and doing stuff like this.
You've got a nice mouth. I'd kill for that ass. Okay, the chair's not doing it now, but lately it's been giving out as soon as I lean back. Mrs. Whitehead. The business model.
Actually, they just made out.
Yeah, she had all kinds of orgasms. I better get back to the wife. Not a lot of complaints, if you know what I mean. At least, not from the girl. And if you'll be so kind as to expose your breasts.
No.
You know, that kitty is starting to sound pretty damn sexy to me. Maybe I oughta...
That was Lindsay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
He's a man, Michael. He needs a woman. I had sex last night.
But he really didn't.
Yes, I did. I Nashback him.
No, I know. You and I know that. But Joe, you know, he's not that exact of a target shooter, and he just kind of sprays it everywhere.
Believe it or not, none of this is what impresses me most about Arrested D's writing. To explain the true leap forward in joke math here, I have to take us back to The Simpsons. The Simpsons didn't invent subversion or undermining by a long shot, but that show did raise the craft to an art form. Nearly every single statement in the show is immediately proven false or otherwise undermined by the next line or moment, to the point that Marge can even make a joke about that not happening.
This house is not an embarrassment. Usually when I say something like that, something extremely embarrassing happens. I'm gonna say goodnight before it does. Good night.
In a world where that show is already dominant and nailing that format of jokes so hard that other shows are complaining about it on their show, how can you write a truly innovative joke? In the case of The Simpsons, something the creators have talked about a lot is disjointing place. A Simpsons plot is less structured than a normal sitcom and reserves the right to cut to any established character in Springfield at any time. You can cut right from Homer setting something up to Professor Frink across town to deliver the punchline. It makes Springfield feel alive and effortlessly funny. It's also way more achievable for an animated show, where you don't have to pay for every new location you secure. So what's a live-action mockumentary to do? Well, Arrested Development also knows how to do the classic undermine, often as bluntly as is joke mathematically possible.
You're a good brother, Michael.
You're a horrible brother, Michael.
Get me out there.
I want you to stay in.
Nana wasn't on that yacht. She's fine. She's been dead for 6 months.
My dad in no way is talking about business from prison.
Excuse me. Your father's calling from prison. He wants to talk to you about the land deal you made with his brother.
What is better than hanging out with family? It's my mother.
Okay, this is what I told Tobias you'd do. Say what you will about him, at least he's happy for me.
Where are you off to on this glorious Sunday afternoon? She won't tell me.
I'm going to audition for a play.
Well.
A family? Nothing else matters.
Michael!
That's Mom, hi.
No, Michael. He mailed the letter. That's not the point.
Job had not mailed the letter.
That is a lie, a bald-faced lie.
Job was lying.
But they also do the opposite of undermining quite a bit, where someone exemplifies something so fully that that makes us laugh.
Lindsay's a combative, entitled princess? I should hire somebody to kick your ass for that.
That's right. Dull, nothing going on upstairs. Michael.
Just seems like every time we want to be together, your father.
Hey guys, what's going on? Why is the banana stand closed?
Man, it's almost like they turned The Simpsons upside down. But where Arrested Development really stands out is that it disjoints time repeatedly and aggressively. They also do so in a few different ways, many of which we just covered. Because we're dealing with time instead of space, these jokes reward flexing your memory skills instead of your observational powers. Most, if not all jokes, rely on setting up a little surprise or info gap for you. A left turn that you have to leap over and make the connection yourself. You want your audience to suddenly get it and to have that feeling click in. A joke is a puzzle in that way. The feeling of figuring something out is key to what makes human beings laugh. It feels good when that stuff passes across our brain desk, and Arrested Development found ways to hit joke brain pathways that I never knew I had. Meta jokes are one thing, which reward your ability to view the material through two lenses at once. The one where everyone's playing a part and we suspend our disbelief, and the one where you know that it's all made up and they're actors with real lives and involved in real situations they can also joke about. Another are those long cons and iterative callbacks, which reward a long memory. The more details of the show you can hold in your head at once, the more lore, the harder those reveals and turns are gonna hit. The last kind of joke I wanna look at, and the one that most impresses me to this day, is what I'm gonna call a mad fold out. The risk of pissing off my crack superiors. If you didn't know, here's The Simpsons again explaining what that is.
What kind of slime would I marry? I don't understand.
It's one of those Mad Magazine fold-ins.
Of course, in that version, you start with one thing, then fold it in on itself, deleting information to create another. Arrested Development does the opposite, using editing to land one joke, then unfold the time to reveal two jokes, then sometimes unfold that to reveal four jokes. It's so cool. A very simple example would be the one in the pilot, where Lindsay first makes this joke.
Good grief, Mother. Not all homosexuals are flamboyant. Oh my God, I have the exact same blouse.
It's a standard, normal joke. But what makes AD unique is that we revisit that scene again later with the new understanding that Tobias is literally on the boat she's looking at wearing a blouse he borrowed from her closet.
Good grief, Mother. Not all homosexuals are flamboyant. Oh my God, I have the exact same blouse.
It's like how Seinfeld episodes always used to come together at the end, or how Frasier and other sitcom farces rely so heavily on chance. But instead of always moving forward in time and relying simply on your ability to keep the story in your head, memory retention, Arrested D fold-out jokes reward your ability to revise and rewrite your memories. A whole other memory skill entirely. I can't fully get into it right now, but if you know about how memories are stored, you probably know that they're less like tapes and more like stories that we repeat to ourselves, meaning changes can and do crop up over time.
Job Bluth had just been told by his father to go to work for his younger brother.
And then thanks for the birthday card that I never got from you for the last 40 years.
Rewriting and revising memories is a core human thing for the brain to learn to do. So by landing jokes that reward specifically that action, Arrested Development is to make you feel like you're experiencing something fresh that you haven't before.
You know, Dad, that attitude might be why you're alone all the time. The way you treat people.
What about you? I didn't even hear from you for your entire childhood. And then thanks for the birthday card that I never got from you for the last 40 years.
It's hard to explain, but here's an example from season 4 that's literally Job explaining something.
Bad example. If you were ashamed of being in love with a man, then I might say something like, homo much? It's not that. I said bad example. Bad example. If you were ashamed of being in love with a man, suddenly discovered these new feelings, something that you only allowed to happen because you thought he was gay and you were hoping to exact revenge, but then you found out he was straight.
then you want to get even. So maybe you put a mask on someone and then try to convince yourself that the sex you were about to have was with yourself, but it turned out to be him, and all you ended up doing was proving that your feelings were real. Then I might say something like, homo much?
It's not that.
I said bad example.
That joke can only work if you disjoint time using editing and if the audience goes through the action of revising their memory of the first time they watched it through. Plus, at the writing stage, those initial edge pieces that we saw had to work as a standalone sitcom joke, but then fold out and work again as another joke. That means a line that was a punchline is now both a punchline and a setup to the new punchline, when traditionally a sitcom line is only tasked with being a setup, a punchline, or a topper additional punchline that correlates to the initial setup. So they're creating these little joke beats that serve two traditional sitcom functions at once.
You take this home, throw it in a pot, add some broth, a potato. Baby, you got a stew going.
That's mind-blowing to me. That's like how the whole reason quantum computers are so powerful is that they take advantage of superpositions, the innate ability for very small things in the universe to paradoxically be, or at least potentially be, multiple things at once. Watch my show Future Proof for more on all that. And although it does have weaknesses, Season 4 of Arrested Development definitely kept that superposition quantum evolution going, and I think it's pretty underrated for that reason. Shout out Paul Rust. Season 5, I wouldn't know. Didn't watch it. Never saw it. Favorite show of all time? Blew it off.
I don't want these.
I wonder why it got canceled. Hello friend, thanks for watching that epic length video. It had my whole heart in it. If it resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe, like, post a comment for that engagement algo that we all serve, and maybe even check out my additional work by searching Small Beans wherever you get your podcasts or heading over to patreon.com/smallbeans. What's Small Beans? Go find out, you crazy.